I shot off a text. Can't take care of your kid. My mom won't do it. You're on your own. At the same time, I was pulling the plug on every single payment I'd been covering. Then Christmas rolled around. That was the day my dad showed up. I'm 34 years old, and the second I saw her face, I knew something was off. My mom, Sharon, was parked on the couch with Megan's kids all around her, looking more lively than she had in ages. This was the same woman who told me she was too unwell to look after my daughter Sophie for even one night. And yet here she was, juggling 3 grandkids like it was nothing. My gut twisted, and for a moment, the whole world seemed to freeze. The laughter in the room dried up as soon as they noticed me standing in the doorway. My mom's face lost color for just a second, then she quickly pulled on that familiar fake smile. "Ben, what a surprise. Wasn't expecting you," she said in that overly cheery tone, bouncing one of my nephews on her knee. I stood there, speechless. In my hand was an envelope stuffed with cash, extra money I'd brought to help with the bills, and suddenly it felt heavier than bricks. My eyes jumped between her, the kids, and my dad, who sank deeper into his chair, doing everything he could to avoid looking at me. "You said you were too sick to watch Sophie," I finally said, my voice tight and strained. The air went dead. Mom didn't say a word at first, but Megan jumped in like she always does, quick to defend her. "She's got too much going on," she offered. Didn't want her to overexert herself. My blood pressure shot up. That familiar heat built behind my eyes. I kept my voice low as I repeated her excuse, while watching her literally babysit. Mom let out a dramatic sigh, rubbed her temple like I was the one causing all the stress. The irony hit hard. She tried to explain it away, said it was different because Megan needed the help. "Being a single mom is tough," she added. And in that moment, everything inside me cracked wide open. 35 years of being the afterthought, the second choice, came crashing into focus. I looked her in the eye and asked straight out, did Megan, who'd never once paid a utility bill, who she'd been bending over backwards for since we were kids, matter more than I did? You could hear a pin drop. My dad shifted in his chair like he wanted to disappear. Megan rolled her eyes. And my mom? She just shook her head like I was being ridiculous. "That's not what I meant," she said quickly. But it was exactly what she meant. My jaw was clenched so hard it hurt. That's when the truth clicked into place. My mom wasn't really sick. She was just playing a game. It wasn't about health. It was about control. She didn't want to risk losing the money I sent, so she lied. She had me thinking she couldn't lift a finger, all while cashing the checks I kept sending. And Megan? She wasn't on it. Always had been. Something in me just broke right then. Years of frustration and disappointment spilled over. I looked them all in the eye and said what I'd never dared say before. Now I understood. I was never really family. I was just the backup plan. The guy they leaned on when stuff went wrong. The one keeping the lights on while they lived however they pleased. Mom made this big, gasping sound, ready to go into performance mode, but I cut her off. She said it wasn't fair. "No," I shot back. "What's unfair is me covering all your bills for years while you treat me like I don't matter." I truly believed they needed my help. But the truth? They just didn't care enough to do anything for me. My mother lied. Megan leaned in with that smug look I'd grown to hate. She called me dramatic. Said Mom had to walk on eggshells around me because I'm too uptight. I stared her down, my face cold and unreadable. "You're pathetic," I told her. She clung to Mom like she was still some helpless teenager. And why not? It was easier than owning up to her life. They deserved each other. I didn't say another word. I turned around and walked out. I heard Mom calling after me. Megan yelled something snide. Dad stayed quiet as always. I didn't stop. I couldn't. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My throat felt like it was on fire. The whole drive home was a blur, just headlights, traffic lights, and cold silence. But by the time I pulled into the driveway, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Kelly was waiting in the kitchen. Sophie was already tucked in upstairs. One look at me, and she knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked, her voice soft. I told her everything. The babysitting lie, the manipulation, finally, all the proof we'd suspected for years. She didn't look shocked. I think deep down, she'd always known too. Then she asked, "What now?" And I told her, "I'm done." That night, I slept like I hadn't in years. Next morning, I shut it all down. Rent payments? Gone. Utility bills? Canceled. Car insurance, groceries cut off. Then I sent a final message. "You're on your own now. Good luck." After that, I blocked their numbers. What came next? Total meltdown. The phone blew up, call after call after call. Like my screen turned into a damn Christmas tree. I blocked every single one. Then came the flood of emails. Guilt trips. Please. All ignored. When they couldn't reach me, they started bothering Kelly. She sent each call straight to voicemail. The look on her face every time made me fall in love with her all over again. And then Mom took the drama public. Sharon unleashed a long, sob story post on Facebook, painting herself as the poor, abandoned mother whose ungrateful son turned his back when she needed him most. She faked being too sick just to dodge watching my daughter. She turned me down for a single night of babysitting, yet somehow had no issue looking after Megan's kids full-time. That was my breaking point. I was done being the one they leaned on and used. And man, the fallout came fast and hit hard. Relatives I hadn't heard from in forever suddenly reached out, offering their support. Friends started opening up with their own stories about messy family dynamics. Even the neighbors chimed in. Some of them said they'd seen my mom tending the garden or out shopping on days she claimed she was too ill to move. Megan, though, she got hit the worst. That perfect little image she'd built up of being the struggling single mom? It shattered. People started asking about her spending habits, about all those trips and luxury stuff she somehow always had time and money for. Then, 3 days later, came the knock that signaled the final act in this whole drama. I looked through the peephole and there they were, Sharon and Tom. Both of them looked worn down, like they hadn't slept in days. My dad looked like life had kicked him in the gut. Mom's eyes were puffy and red, though I couldn't tell if it was real emotion or just another performance. I froze for a second, hand resting on the doorknob. Half of me wanted to leave them standing out there until they gave up and left. But the other half, the part that still held onto some sliver of hope, needed to know what they had to say. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. I stayed put, blocking their way in. Mom jumped right into it, her voice shaking like she was already halfway through crying. She begged me to talk, reminded me they were still my parents. I told her she could talk all she wanted from right where she stood. I wasn't moving. Dad cleared his throat and finally spoke. Your mom's heartbroken, he said. We both are. We never meant to hurt you. You didn't mean for me to find out, I corrected him, my voice calm but cold. There's a big difference. Mom reached out to grab my arm, but I took a step back. She gave me that pleading look. I know you're angry, sweetheart, but cutting us off completely, it's harsh. Then came the pitch. We can't make rent this month. The electric's about to get shut off. Is that really what you want? Your parents sitting in the dark. The guilt trip was so textbook, so see-through, I almost laughed out loud. You've got options, I said plainly. Dad can go get a job. You two can move into a smaller place. Maybe Megan can actually step up for once. I shrugged. Or keep playing this game and see where it takes you. My mom's face hardened at that. After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us? You'd really throw us out like trash? I looked straight at her. Tell me one thing you've done for me in the last 10 years that wasn't about you needing something. Nothing. Silence. Dad looked down at the floor like it might swallow him whole. Mom opened her mouth a few times, then shut it again. No answer. That's what I thought, I said quietly. They made their bed. Now they could sleep in it. I closed the door. And just like that, for the first time in my life, I felt free. No more guilt weighing me down. No more being manipulated or guilt into giving. No more running after some version of family that never really included me. And God, it felt incredible. The next few weeks? Surprisingly calm. Kelly and I took Sophie down to the beach for a long weekend. We even started checking out homes in a better school district, something we'd always talked about but never actually pursued. At work, I finally got promoted, probably because I could finally concentrate without constant family crises stealing my focus. But, of course, peace never lasts long. The rumors started coming back to me, mostly through coworkers and distant cousins. My parents were telling people I'd gone off the deep end. Megan told anyone who'd listened that I was mentally unstable, obsessed with money, and just off. Then one night, my aunt called. No small talk, she dove right in. They're telling everyone you've lost your mind, she said. Your mom's calling it a midlife crisis. I leaned back in my office chair and sighed. Are you even surprised? I asked. Not one bit, she admitted. You know how Sharon is. She can't stand losing control. My aunt had always seen through Mom's act. That's why they barely talked anymore. How bad is it? I asked. Pretty bad, she said. They're about to get evicted. Tom tried getting his old job back at the hardware store, but no one's biting. Megan's been begging people for money, but folks are finally starting to put two and two together. I felt something stir in my chest, not quite guilt, but something close. I told her, it's not my problem anymore. But even I could hear the hesitation in my voice. She stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then she agreed. You've done more than enough, she said. And deep down, I knew she was right. She just thought I should know what was being said. After we hung up, I sat in silence, watching the sunset through my office window. Was I a bad son? A cruel person? The doubts crept in like shadows. Kelly found me there an hour later, still staring into the distance. She asked if I was okay, perching on the edge of my desk. I admitted I didn't know. Part of me felt free, but another part felt guilty. She took my hand, her expression serious. She reminded me that I'd supported them for years. I'd given them more chances than they deserved. All they had to do was be honest with me, treat me with the same respect they gave Megan. They couldn't even do that. She was right. I knew she was right. I confessed my worry about what would happen when they really needed help, when they were elderly and genuinely couldn't take care of themselves. Kelly squeezed my hand. That was a bridge to cross when we got there, she told me. But supporting them didn't have to mean being manipulated by them. There was a difference between helping parents and being their personal ATM. I nodded, pulling her into my lap. I asked her when she got so wise. She claimed she'd always been wise. I was just finally listening. 2 months passed. Sophie learned to count to 20, a development that brought me more joy than any promotion ever could. We put an offer on a house in a quiet neighborhood with good schools. Life moved forward. Then came the Christmas card. It arrived on a Tuesday, nestled between bills and grocery store flyers. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately. Inside was a generic holiday card with a family photo, my parents and Megan with her kids, everyone smiling as if nothing had changed. On the back, a single line in my mother's looping script. We miss you. No apology, no acknowledgement of what had happened, just 3 words that were supposed to make everything better. I tossed it in the trash without a second thought. That evening, as Kelly and I decorated our Christmas tree, the doorbell rang. I froze, tinsel in hand. Kelly offered to get it, squeezing my shoulder as she passed. I heard murmured voices, then Kelly returned with an expression I couldn't quite read. It was your dad, she told me quietly, just him. My father stood in the entryway, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I remembered. His hair had gone completely gray since I'd last seen him. Deep lines etched his face. We exchanged terse greetings. I asked him what he was doing here. He glanced at Kelly, then back to me. He asked if we could talk just for a few minutes. Kelly gave me a look that said it was my call. I nodded, and she took Sophie upstairs for her bath, leaving us alone. I gestured toward the living room, and we sat on opposite ends of the couch, the partially decorated Christmas tree blinking between us. Your mother doesn't know I'm here, he began, staring at his hands. She'd be furious if she found out. That got my attention. So why are you? He took a deep breath. Because I owe you an apology. A real one. Not whatever manipulative nonsense your mother's been trying. I didn't respond. I'd heard too many hollow apologies over the years. He continued, his voice rough. He had failed me not just recently, but my whole life. He stood by while my mother favored Megan. He watched her take advantage of my generosity without saying a word. He let it happen. The raw honesty in his voice caught me off guard. I asked him why he never stepped in. He rubbed his face, suddenly looking every bit as 71 years. He confessed he was a coward. It was easier to let her have her way than to fight about it. Easier to stay quiet than stand up for what was right. He didn't expect forgiveness. He wouldn't in my shoes. But he needed me to know that I was right to walk away. And he was proud of me for having the courage he never did. Something tied in my chest loosened slightly. I asked him what would happen now. They were moving in with Megan, he told me with a grimace. My mother's idea, not his. The irony was, Megan wasn't happy about it either. Turns out she didn't actually want to take care of them. Who'd have thought? Despite everything, I felt a small smile tug at my lips. Shocking, I deadpanned. For the first time in months, my father smiled too, a sad, tired smile, but genuine. He said he should go. My mother would be wondering where he was. I walked him to the door, uncertain what to say. He paused on the threshold, turning back. Merry Christmas, son. That's a beautiful little girl you've got. You're a better father than I ever managed to be, he said. Before I could figure out how to respond, he was already heading back to his car, his boots crunching in the light snow as he walked away. I stood there for a moment, then closed the door and leaned against it, shaken in a way I hadn't expected. I hadn't seen that coming, not the honesty, and definitely not the apology. It didn't undo everything, but it meant something. It was a start, a small one. A few minutes later, Kelly found me still frozen in place. She looked at me carefully. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah," I said, and to my surprise, I actually meant it. "I think I really am." That night, as we hung the last ornaments on the tree, I found myself reflecting on what family really meant. Not the people tied to you by blood, but the ones who choose you and love you for who you are. Kelly, who had never made me feel like I wasn't enough. Sophie, who looked up at me like I was the whole universe. The friends and coworkers who had stood by me when my own family didn't. That they were my real family. Not perfect, but honest. And real. We ended up moving into our new place not long after. A simple 4-bedroom with a decent backyard, just big enough for Sophie's swing set. When she turned 4, we threw her a dinosaur-themed birthday party. The house was a mess of green frosting for days, but it was the happiest I'd been in years. I heard from my dad now and then short, awkward phone calls that neither of us were totally sure how to navigate. Mom still wouldn't budge. Still no apology. Instead, she kept spinning stories to anyone who'd listen, saying I was the one who needed to fix things. Megan, from what I heard, had kicked them out after 2 months. Apparently, their constant neediness became too much for her, too. They ended up in a small apartment, scraping by on what little fixed income they had. And honestly, part of me felt justified. They were finally dealing with the consequences of everything they'd done. But there was also a quiet sadness underneath it all, not for who they were, but for what we could have had if they'd chosen differently. If things had gone another way. One warm Saturday afternoon, as I pushed Sophie on her new swing, my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. The text said, "It's Megan. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, unsure if I even wanted to open that door again. We hadn't spoken since that massive blowout at our parents' house. What could she possibly want now? Still, curiosity won. When and where? I replied. We met that following Monday at a coffee shop near my office. She was already there when I walked in, and she looked different, less polished, more like herself. She greeted me with a quiet, "Thanks for coming." I cut right to the chase. "What's this about?" She wrapped her fingers around her mug and didn't look up. When she finally spoke, she admitted what I never thought I'd hear from her. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I was awful to you." I raised an eyebrow. Waiting. She explained how she had honestly believed it would be okay when our parents moved in. She assumed they'd help with the kids, maybe split some bills. Instead, they did nothing. Mom criticized everything, how she cooked, how she raised her kids, how she kept her house. And Dad just sat around watching TV like he didn't even live there. I couldn't help it. "Sounds familiar," I said, dry as dust. She gave a small, sheepish nod. "Now I get it," she said. "Now I understand what you were dealing with. It's exhausting." After 2 months, I couldn't take it anymore. I pointed out that she'd kicked them out. She didn't argue. "I had to," she said. "They were making me miserable." I leaned back and looked at her closely. There was something in her face I hadn't seen before, some humility, maybe even regret. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. She let out a sigh and finally looked me in the eyes. "Because you were right. About everything. Mom always treated me differently. I let you carry all the weight because it was easier for me to pretend things weren't broken." She paused. "And I'm sorry. Really. I didn't know what I expected when I agreed to meet her, but it sure wasn't this." Megan had never said sorry, not once, not in over 30 years. I told her I appreciated it. But I was honest, too. One apology didn't undo everything that had happened. She nodded quickly. "I know. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just needed you to know. I see it now. What they did. What I did." She said she was trying to do better for her kids. Something about that hit me hard. For her kids. No matter how complicated things were, she was trying to break the cycle. I asked if she still spoke to Mom and Dad. "Sometimes," she said. "Mom's still Mom. She won't change." But Megan was putting up boundaries now. No more free babysitting. No more handing out cash. No more being guilted into playing along. I nodded. I knew exactly how that felt. Then I surprised myself. I asked about her kids. She smiled, and some of the tension melted from her shoulders. "They're doing good. Lucas just started kindergarten. Ava's obsessed with soccer." She said they still talked about Sophie sometimes. The conversation hit a pause. Just silence and decades of unresolved baggage sitting between us. Finally, I told her the truth. I couldn't say we'd ever be close. There was just too much history there. Too much damage. But maybe, I said, we can try again. As adults. Leave the old crap behind. She nodded, her eyes a little watery. I'd like that, she said quietly. We chatted another 20 minutes or so, safe topics. Her job, my new place, the weather. It wasn't some huge emotional breakthrough, but it was something. A start. It wasn't a grand resolution, but it was something. A small step in the right direction. As we walked out of the coffee shop, Megan turned to me. She thanked me again for agreeing to meet her and for finally standing up to our parents. She admitted that if I hadn't drawn the line, she probably never would have seen things clearly. I gave her a simple nod. I wasn't ready to say you're welcome, not yet, but I let her know I heard her. On the way back to my office, I noticed something strange. I felt lighter. Like a weight I'd been dragging around for years had finally started to lift. No, things weren't magically fixed. They might never be. But I had finally broken out of the roles I'd been trapped in my whole life. I was no longer the family's walking bank account. I wasn't the invisible son anymore, the dependable one who got taken for granted while everyone else took whatever they wanted. I was just Ben now, a husband, a dad, a man living life on his own terms for the first time. That night, after brushing teeth and reading bedtime stories, I tucked Sophie in under her favorite dinosaur blanket. She looked up at me with those big eyes she got from Kelly and asked, "Daddy, are you happy?" I leaned down, kissed her forehead, and took in that soft scent of her hair, apple shampoo, and innocence. "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "I'm really, really happy." And the best part was, I actually meant it. For the first time in what felt like forever, it was the honest-to-God truth.